All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Lee Velez. I'm here with Lindsay Jenkins, and Gabe. Guys, thank you for joining us. Moving in together. In this episode, we have special guest Lindsay Jenkins, who recently moved in together with our cousin Danny Cuevas. The crew discusses sharing, communication, relationships, finances, possessions, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Helen Cam and Eric Hoffer. If you're new, guys, thank you for listening. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off with a definition from dictionary.com, and we define the word coexist. They define it as to exist separately or independently, but peacefully, often while remaining rivals or adversaries. That sounds like enemies, kind of.
It feels that way.
It does. All right, cool. So obviously we're going to talk about moving in together, but this specific topic, I wanted to grab an article from, I think it's the Huffington Post. Yeah, it's HuffingtonPost.com, titled 15 Things Couples Should Do Before Moving In Together. So it's pretty straightforward, and their ideas are, I think, spot on. There's a couple, random ones, but this is a great article put together by Wendy here. All right, so number one, again, 15 things couples should do before moving in together. Number one, articulate at least one reason besides convenience and finances to move in together. So hopefully you guys love each other.
Hopefully you can stand each other for more than 4 hours, right?
Yeah, that's more of like a friends with benefit kind of thing on that number one line. But outside of that, you only hope, right? I mean, life is just, one of these crazy things that we're living, obviously, right? Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, yeah, when you want everything to kind of line up exactly how you want it to in your mind or how you ever hope for, but who cares if it doesn't? As long as it's like, it's, I don't know, the way things pan out, it's always like in my head, I always have something like how I want it. But for some reason, the way it pans out is like way better, beneficial for me. Sure. But when it initially happens, I'm like all kind of bent out of shit. Well, that's not how I thought it was going to happen. What the heck?
Well, yeah, it never works out. It never starts off the way you planned it.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, like, the end result's always better anyway. All right, number two, save enough money for 3 months rent, security in event of a breakup. Okay, well, so...
This is my favorite one.
Yeah, it's just like, I do get the cushion, and I do believe that that's a really good point. And maybe, strategy-wise, if you had it like that, that's fantastic. And I think you should, go for it. But I also don't think like that should be a hindrance, right? So if you don't have 3 months and then you're just sitting there like, oh, let's just kind of wait it out. To me, that's like, when you decided to move in with that person, is that like that conscious decision? Like, because for me, it's kind of like, this is going to be my forever person. So that if I know that, and okay, maybe I had 1 month stacked up or 2 months stacked up, am I really waiting till I had that 3 stacked up and the situation's really calling for, we need to get the heck out of where we are and move in together kind of thing? It's situational for me. And I'm what do they call it? I'm a lifer. So if I'm with somebody, I'm with that person, right? Sure, right. So if I'm married to my wife, I'm with my wife, right? It's not like, yeah, exactly. That's a tough one. But I totally agree if you have it like that. And if you can appropriately plan and you're that good, awesome, dude. I'm all for that. That's awesome. Number 3, reach an agreement on how rent/mortgage and household expenses will be split. Yes, please, yes.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah,
one person handles it all, right?
Maybe back in the day they did that, but
yeah.
You can't do that crap now.
No, absolutely not.
Just Wi-Fi and cable alone is $200. Wi-Fi, letter Y.
Okay, so we'll
5.
get into that because that's like such a big topic.
Right.
All right, number 4, discuss your financial situation in detail. Same thing. That's such a huge topic, but yes, I agree. Be in agreement about potential future steps in your relationship, like marriage and kids, and when you'd like for those to happen.
Puppies.
Yes. including pets. They left pets out, but that's a huge thing.
Yeah, pets.
Yeah, we'll discuss further. Number 6, discuss how household chores will be divvied up. I like the word divvied. Number 7, clean out your closets and get rid of all the old crap. This is literally a word they use. You no longer want or need.
Still trying to get Dan to do that.
Which is like the shoes he wears every day. So
Yeah. Well, it's just at Terry and Papa's. So
exactly.
Oh,
That's at the in-laws.
Yeah.
Number 8, celebrate a 1-year anniversary together. Oh, I guess they said you should be
Plan
together
for
for
a year.
at least a year.
Oh, before
you're
together.
moving in.
Gotcha.
I gotcha.
Celebrate that 1 year.
Go on a trip together for several nights, preferably one that requires a flight or two or a long time together in a small confined space like a car. I get that. I know what they're saying because it's like when you put yourself in a situation where it's not always going to be,
Sure.
rainbows and dandelions.
You have no choice but to interact with each other.
Yeah.
Right.
In an uncomfortable way, too. Number 10, be comfortable doing all your private bathroom activities in each other's homes. Introduce your pets and your kids if you have them. Fair enough. Decide whose furniture you're keeping. Also fair enough. Number 14, pick out some new sheets and bedding that complements both your tastes. I would have to agree. I mean, I hope you're picking out new sheets and bedding, but I don't know what the heck the statistic is, but how much we sleep and how many hours we're in our bed. I remember a while ago that was like this one older gentleman that I knew, and he was talking about how his bedroom was painted purple and that he could not stand the color. If your bedroom's painted purple, right? Like I like the purple or the color purple. So if my bedroom's painted purple, and I'm talking about a really light, like a pastel purple, I can do, right?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. It literally doesn't bother me. One of my favorite colors is purple. But if you don't like that color, or if that's just by like, it's like a one-sided, lopsided thing, outside of color of your walls or your bed sheets and the decor, that got to be brutal because of how much time we actually spend in our bedrooms. Yeah. Now, I mean, if you sleep on a couch every night, that's on you, bud. All right, and the last one, have an exit strategy. I mean, these guys, they just want you to break up.
prepping for failure.
They prep you for success and then like prep you for failure too.
Step 1 and 15 of the.
But I think there was a couple steps in it where like kind of like they're getting you ready. Like some people already have families and stuff like introduce your kids and your pets.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you don't have this? So that you skip those steps, obviously. But I mean, how do they put that into perspective into one of the 15 steps?
No, I mean, I agree with it. It's saying it says if you have any. I mean, how do you expect to move in with somebody if they have kids and pets that you've never met before?
Right.
And you're moving in together, you definitely should have an intro.
Yeah, that would be awkward.
Yeah. Go out to dinner, take a walk.
Dude, no way. Just move in and that's it. And next thing you know, by the way, this is my kid, Kyle. Like, he's moving in. That's the third bedroom. And Pedro, the dog, is over here too. Don't do that introduction. Just make it awkward as all hell. Forget it.
And that's why number 15 comes in. Have an exit strategy.
Yeah, have an exit strategy.
Right there. Closure.
Exit strategy called door. Who keeps the apartment in the event of a breakup? Will the person moving out find a new roommate for the person staying? ? What about the deposit on the apartment? Okay, fair enough. It was a good enough article. I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yeah.
It brought up some thought-provoking ideas, and we can just kind of spin off that. So our guest, Lindsay Jenkins, is in a relationship with our cousin Danny Cuevas. They live together in an apartment, and I will let her elaborate a little bit more on their relationship and their living situation. But just to kind of give you guys, a little brief synopsis of what's going on and why we have her as a guest on our podcast, 112, titled Moving In Together. So, Lindsay, can you just briefly explain, I know Danny's not here, but explain, how you guys met and, what your current living situation is.
So Dan and I met about a year and a half ago. We met last July, and we met on a blind date. We were fixed up by our friend.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she did a really poor job of selling him. She was like, yeah, he's 28 and I'm 33. So I was like, all right, he's younger. But she's like, but he's really mature for 28. And he is. I mean, Dan is one of the most mature people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And she's like, he lives at home. I'm like, oh, God. Because my ex lived at home with his mom, and he was like in his mid-30s, and that ended because it was like, all right, clearly this is not going anywhere.
Right.
So I just immediately had flashbacks, and I was like, oh, no. But she was like, she talked so highly of him. Okay, fine. So, we got along very well. And it kind of just, when I met him, he was studying for his boards for nursing.
Yeah.
So he was either at the library all the time or at Starbucks all the time. And he would come over after work when I got home from school, and it just turned into like when I would leave for school, I was gone all day. It was just my empty apartment, and he would ask if he could come over and study. And then, it became like, all right, well, I'm going to come over and study. I'll bring a bag in case I stay over. And then he never left. So
that's one way.
Yeah.
That's one way to move in.
Yeah. Bringing your clothes in little by little.
Yeah. So then eventually, we took one day where we went over to his parents' house, and I think I like handpicked stuff that he was allowed to bring because, I mean, he has more things than I do. I've never seen a man with so many clothes, so many shoes. Like, in our bedroom, I had, when I lived alone, a 6-drawer dresser.
Yeah.
He now has 3 of those 6 drawers, plus his own separate 6-drawer dresser that he brought from home. And half the closet.
My man.
And he still has stuff at his parents' house.
Oh my God. I guess that's just as bad as me. I have the whole closet and all 5 drawers.
Yeah, I think that might be in our family.
And I got a rack of shoes in the closet. Like, the rack is on the ground and my clothes are above it. So, yeah. It's a guy thing. I think it's our family. We're bad with that.
Maybe. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we read this article when you first sent it to us, and we did maybe like 3 of those things. Because we just celebrated our year anniversary in July.
Yeah.
And when we went on our first vacation together, we took a road trip to Virginia. And on the way home is how we discovered this podcast, because we had like an 8-hour drive, and Dan was like, hey, guess what? Jim has a podcast. All right, cool.
Listen.
Yes, we did.
Awesome. That is awesome.
But yeah, it was definitely like he was hurting because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
And, in my little car, we've made many stops to, but it was, it was good. And as far as like living together, everything's been pretty normal. We just split everything.
Yeah.
Last October, we did have an addition. We ended up taking in a 17-year-old. And it was, I think I said yes before I asked Dan about it. And then I was like, are you sure about this? And he was fine with it. Which I know, like, Jim, you and I have talked about, but like the second or third day I ever talked to Dan, one of the things he said to me was, I really want to adopt a kid one day. And I want to adopt a teenager because nobody wants the teenagers.
Yeah.
And it was Friday, October 27th. And we were at the Huonville Inn having drinks. And my best friend calls me and she was like, hey, Nelgie needs a place to stay for the weekend. Can she stay with you guys?
Yeah.
So I was like freaking out and just like asked him 1,000 times, are you sure this is okay? Yeah, it's fine. So she came to stay with us for the weekend, and she still lives with us, and now we have custody of her, and he got his teenager.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like,
so me and him had. Everyone here can vouch that I've had some deep conversations with all of these, right? And one of my conversations with Danny was just, it was a kid conversation, it's a children conversation, I should say, and he asked me directly. He's like, what's your take on, having kids? Obviously, there's prior. Me and Kel were married, but there's prior to us having James or Cade. And I said, I always wanted 2 of my very own, because I just think for me that's like a beautiful thing. That's what I want to do, and I always wanted to adopt a child. So then he's like staring at me. He's like, dude, so do I. I think that's awesome. Is how how badass is that? Like you adopt a kid like that. I just think there's something. He's like, I feel like that's a calling, and I was like, I think it is too, because that's not for everyone, but I think if like you have that ingrained in you, like you should do it. You know what I mean? Like that's definitely something that God placed in your heart. And he's like, yeah. So he's like, what age? So this is where I never thought about this. I'm like, what do you mean? Because in my mind, adoption for me was
Like
a baby.
Baby, not yeah.
So this is when he said, dude, this is years ago. I mean, when I say years ago, James is 4.5. So we're talking at least 6-7 years ago. Yeah. And he's like, I want to adopt a teenager. I would love to adopt a teenager because, you know, it must be hard for them to get placed in a, you know, like in a home. And when he said that, there was like a mind-blowing thing. I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, like, I see it, like you see it on TV, but for someone to come from genuinely from their heart and say that, I was like, wow, dude, that's your thing, dude. Like, go after it. And then our conversation obviously like spiraled into other conversations, but that is a real thing. Like, that was a real conversation I personally had with Danny out back my own house smoking a cigar. Legit conversation. Yeah, so that's awesome. So when you guys, you know, it kind of happened naturally, the way you explained it. Was there any like contingencies? Like for me, it's like when someone like moves in, because it was technically obviously your space first. So is there any things that you kind of maybe that he did or you didn't want him to do that would maybe make you cringe or just like, oh God, no, someone's gonna, or is you just kind of open?
I mean, we don't really have anything that like we butt heads about. I'm like, I have OCD, like legitimate OCD, not like, you know, I just say I do.
Yeah.
So when I was like, for example, when I was little, I would never let my own friends come into my room because I didn't want them touching my stuff.
Oh yeah.
And like moving it or leaving things or, you know, so I've always been an overly clean person.
Yeah.
And I've lived by myself since I went to college. So, you know, I've been on my own for over 12 years. I've never had to worry about, you know, somebody else doing something that I do a different way.
Right.
So, you know, it'd be something totally innocent, like folding towels or putting something in the cabinet. And it wasn't how I have been doing it for 12 years.
Right.
And like, I can't say anything because it's not him, it's me. Like, you know, I like my dish towels rolled and I stack them all. And I open the closet one day and they're just like a mess of like nicely folded, but not rolled how I like them.
Right.
So I just kind of pretend that they fall on the floor and then I pick them up and I refold them.
Oh my God.
And like a couple weeks ago, he and Nelji I guess they had a bet or something because we all went grocery shopping and I wasn't home when they went home to put everything away, and they bet like how long it would take me to rearrange the fridge.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I figure if everything's in its spot, you open the fridge, you see everything that's there.
Right.
There's no like rooting through, there's no guessing. Like, I just like to have it all out in the open. And if it bothers you, fine, then you can shop for yourself. Like, and I had like a tantrum that day. I was like, I'm not cooking, I'm not cleaning for you guys. Screw you.
Oh man.
I got over it like real quick.
That's great.
That's great.
So I mean, having things a certain way. So how is that? Because within 1 year, you don't have one person, you have two people. So it's beyond you and Dan's relationship, right?
Yeah.
Now you adopted a teenager. Is there something even beyond that? That's even kind of cooler. So is there anything else that's kind of like Danny's not doing or Danny is doing the way you thought it should happen and she's not doing something? Or is it kind of... You guys figured it all out?
I mean, we figured it all out. Like, the only thing I know that he definitely does, like, when I fold his laundry, I like to fold my t-shirts in the middle and then fold the sleeves over, but he likes to fold the sleeves in and then, like, double it and double it again. So, I know how to fold his shirts. He doesn't even bother, like, touching my laundry. He's like, it's your thing.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And Nelji's a slob. I mean, she's 17.
Yeah.
That's what it's
the age
like
is, every 30 seconds, it's like... cleaning her room, and she hoards dishes, but she lives a stone's throw to the sink. I mean, I feel like if she gave it a big enough like heave, she could get a bowl from her doorway into the sink. Yet there's like piles and piles of dishes in her room.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So one day when they were both, I guess he was working and she was at school, I went in to look for something that I knew would be in her room, and I just every surface was covered in clothes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah.
So I just went like scorched earth and took everything out of her room and put it in the living room. And I texted her and I was like, the second you get home, we're going through everything you own. We are donating stuff that you don't wear anymore, and we are cleaning this room.
How did she take to that? Like, how was her reaction towards it? Like, did she get like I don't know, like, does she give you guys attitude? Like, I mean...
No, she's really quiet. She's actually really afraid of Dan because, like, Dan
well, who isn't? He's a giant. Look at him.
He is a giant, but, like, Dan is probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. So he doesn't yell. Like, he never gets mad. But he'll be like, LG, I'm so disappointed that you didn't, X, Y, and Z. And she just dies because he's so disappointed in her.
That
so
probably
he
just
likes to
hurts
pull that
harder.
card. Like, I'm really sad by this, or I'm really disappointed by this. And she's mortified. But yeah, she's usually afraid of him more than me.
That's too funny. So you guys are obviously opposites in a sense of organizing and cleaning the home.
I think Dan's pretty clean.
Yeah. So, all right. So did pets come along with this deal?
I have 2 dogs. Yes. And they...
What kind of dogs?
I have 2 Maltese.
Nice.
Somethings. I have Baxter, who I've had for almost 5 years. So it's been just me and him. Yeah. Until 2 years ago. Then I adopted my second dog, Simon. So Baxter was still kind of jealous that there was another dog. Then this guy comes in. And Simon likes everybody. So, like, Dan is his favorite person. He'll, like, sit on his head and give him kisses and, like, all this stuff. They have, like, a really sweet bromance. It's great. Yeah. Baxter is, like, cat-like. So he took a while to get used to Dan, just, like, having somebody in the house. But he likes him. He tolerates him. Yeah. He'll sometimes go over and, like, hang out with him. And then a second later, he's like, who are you? Get away from me.
That's funny. So did Danny have any issues with that, or he's just kind of like laid back with? It's funny with Danny because he's definitely he's a very calm, or he has poise in himself. So when he presents himself, even if he's probably nervous about something, you can't always tell. No, he kind of like blocks that portion off and just
plays it well.
Yeah, he plays it off really well. If he is, I'm not saying that he is nervous. I'm just saying if he ever was, you can't really tell. He's hard to read in that sense because he's always calm in a sense, and regardless of what the situation is, he just has like this calming thing about him. I don't know what it is. I can see him actually being easy. I'm not saying the guy's perfect or anything by any means, but I'm saying I can see him being easy to get along with. For the most part.
He talks to everyone. Like, everyone I've ever introduced him to, they're like, he is the nicest person I've ever met. Yeah. And he is. Like, he has this way of, like, making people open up to him. And yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. All right, so what about, like, furniture? I know you did mention the 6-drawer dresser that he brought in. Obviously, you've been living, by yourself for a while, so your apartment was already fully furnished. Was there anything that was, like, style-wise or anything that when he came in, you're like, oh, gosh, maybe this is too... Was it, like, more of, like, a feminine thing, or you're just kind of in between? It didn't really have any of that kind of appeal? Because the reason why I'm saying this, because I remember my wife's best friend, her apartment, like, if it defined a level of, like, I don't even know if this is a term or anything, but, like, it was definitely a female that was living there, and there's nothing against it, but you could just tell, like, it was just a lot of color, a lot of just it was like this Hawaiian themed thing.
And she was the only one living in the house?
She was the only one living in the house.
Yeah, she could do whatever she wanted.
Obviously. It was, she's paying rent, she's paying the bills. It was
right. I'm saying what I mean is, like, she didn't have to consult with someone who's like, oh, I'm going to put up a hibiscus over in this corner. Like, she just did it, and it was like her own stilo for it.
But what I'm saying is then her and her boyfriend at the time, who's now her husband, moved in. They moved in together. I'm always interested in how that, because then he's the opposite. He is a hunter. So all his stuff was just very, like, dark greens, masculine. Dark browns. And very masculine. You had one super feminine and super masculine. It's hilarious. So when they came together, I don't even know how you do it. If you go to their house now, it's beautiful. It's beautifully decorated, like, and you could tell where they met. Yeah. Like, where they met in their style, I mean. It's just like they can just decorate very well. And it's just like, wow, this came together. I thought I was going to see, like, like deer horns or whatever hanging, on one side.
With lays on them.
Yes, with lays on them. Right, exactly. Like, I just thought, like, that's what I was going to walk into.
So classic.
And here you walk into this, like, maturely decorated, like, I'm like, oh, okay, fancy. Hey, I didn't know that was going to happen. Was there anything in that sense? I know, because Dan's coming from his parents' house, so it wasn't like he had really, much of decoration per se, but if
Right.
is there anything that you changed because he was there? You kind of switched up or took down?
No, I mean, as far as decorations go, I have it's not like, I wouldn't say super feminine. I'm not a very girly girl.
Yeah.
But the thing that the one thing he wanted, he wanted his degrees displayed because, you guys know he's been in college since he was like 4.
Yeah.
So he
He's still there.
he's 5 degrees,
Yeah.
4 of which are hanging now in our bedroom.
Yeah.
But we did get a king size bed because I've had a full, and I think that lasted maybe 8 months. But
Yeah.
he's 6'4".
Yeah.
And at the time, both dogs slept with us, so all
Yeah.
4 of us in a full bed was
Yeah.
not comfortable. So
No.
we sprung for the king size mattress, and now neither of us knows that we're even in the same bed. We have our own half. It's pretty great.
That's
It's on the
awesome.
west wing and she's on the east wing.
Yeah.
Dude, that's funny because I'm probably just as tall, and I just remember just adjusting to and not knowing I was adjusting. So I lived in a twin bed my whole life. Even when I went to college in the dorms, somehow they mistakenly put like an athlete bed. So what an athlete bed is, it's an extended twin. So it's super long. And it was like the most comfortable bed I ever had, literally. And I didn't even know any better. That's how long I was used to literally my feet hanging over the end of the bed. Or I would kind of like crisscross applesauce my feet in my bed or my legs in my bed.
And he's still taking over the whole bed.
Yeah. Until till we got our own place. Or no, till my parents moved and we got all new furniture for our rooms. And I finally bought a queen size bed. And I remember it being like literally life changing. I was just like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be this comfortable? Like,
Yeah,
I know people like
completely agree.
sleep. Yeah, like I know people like sleeping and stuff like that. And I always think people just say that stuff just to say it, just because whatever. I don't want to get out of my bed. But no, literally, there's a reason why. Well, I discovered the reason why is because you're actually comfortable in your own bed. I was always uncomfortable in my own bed.
Yeah, sleeping in a twin for the longest time, and then all of a sudden you have a queen. It's like, holy crap. I'm only 5'11". I could lay diagonal in the bed, and there's like so much room on either side. I'm like, dude, this is great. And I had it for myself. So I would come home at nighttime. I'm like, just sprawl out. I'll lay any which way I want. Next thing you know, a dog will come in. And then I realized how small the bed actually is when you have a wife and 14 kids. They all want to sleep in with you, including the dogs. So I knew what you were feeling when you had a smaller bed, because it's totally that way now. So we're looking to get a king size bed, but we need to get a bigger bedroom as well. Because I think we should just get a studio. Because everyone sleeps with each other, like in the house. Everybody sleeps in the same room. Yeah. So I think we should just do that.
A two-bed studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it, the Murphy bed that like comes out of the wall?
Oh my God.
That would be so cool.
Uncle Jesse had that in Full House, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That is cool.
Like you said, like think of how much time you spend in your bedroom. Like if you're gonna spend money on something, it might as well be your bed.
It should be.
Yeah,
Not only your bed and like your sheets. Like if you have like the cushion, like that extra cushion, then you get like that Egyptian thread sheets. There's a big difference. And then the space. So I'm talking about a queen. I can imagine a king, which is even more space, because James will sleep in between us and just drop kick me, punch me in the face. I'm a very like, if I go to sleep, I'm not saying I'll wake up in the exact same position, but fairly close. I'll just kind of like roll over. Because I wake up a lot in the middle of the night, and it's because I'm uncomfortable. Again, I'm back at this stage, but it's not because of necessarily the bed. It's because there's other people in the bed, and it's just like, But I check my phone, so I'll look over, turn it off, and then that's my movement. It's like James literally is doing flips in the bed. I don't even know what he's doing. He ended up one day, his feet were literally at my neck kicking me, and he was the other way.
That was last night. I'm like, what the heck? My feet. I'm like, what the hell is tickling my foot? Nova's head and her curly ass hair is all over my toes. I'm like, what in the world are you doing down there, Nova? And then the best part is it's 3:00 in the morning, and I guess she just like woke up and could go to sleep. She finds her iPad and she's watching iPad in the bed. I'm like, Nova, it's time to sleep. Like, what are you doing? She's like, Dad, I can't sleep. I'm like, well, bring your body over this way. And she's not understanding. I'm like, can you bring your head over towards where mine and mommy's head is at? Like, so we can sleep all normal? Because I felt bad. I was like kicking her. My feet were like brushing her hair. I was like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, that was exactly last night. So uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I mean, the sleeping situations is tough. First of all, and then you don't even know what you're getting into when you move in with someone. Technically,
oh, yeah. Dan's a snorer.
Yeah, that like things like that. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Is he a mover?
He is now. Like he used to be like Jim would. And he would sleep like kind of in the same spot.
Yeah.
Now he'll flip in a circle until he can find a spot.
Like a dog, like they
and then
dig.
He's kind of. But he like just recently started snoring, so we got like the nose strips and like. Every night, did you put your nose strip on? Did you set your alarm? Yes. And like, sometimes I'll just reach over and whack him right in the face. Like, turn over.
That's great.
Yeah.
I told him I'm going to start recording him and play it back for him.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
funny.
You don't know
what people's habits are.
Tendencies, whatever. That's funny. And then there's a difference with moving in with someone who is your significant other versus moving into someone who's just a roommate.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of different things that come along with that. I feel like to me, I feel like the tension's more, I don't know, it's a good trade-off, but I feel like the tension's more when you're moving in with just a roommate. Because I feel like there's this thing in your head that everything has to be even, has to be. But if it's your significant other, there's this source of love that is forgiving about you. So you're just kind of like, okay, like whatever. You kind of like shrug it off. We'll talk about it to, I don't want this ongoing. But there's this level of, I think, forgiveness. Whereas if it's just a roommate, you're like, no, that wasn't the deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah, you're sending like passive aggressive texts like, I need your $176.13 for cable. Can you Venmo me?
Dude, that is so true.
I accept PayPal too, so you have two options here, buddy.
You know how like unfortunate that is too? Like that's just like ruins relationships too.
Oh yeah.
Like, regardless, like of what that kind of relationship it is, that stuff ruins. I mean, obviously, money's like the number one factor for divorces statistically, but I mean, just imagine outside of relationships, like your significant other, just a random, even like, okay, who wants to go to whatever Blink-182 concert, a Beyonce concert, the baseball game? Who wants to go in and buy a shore house together for the summer? Anytime money comes together. Something's about to go down, and it doesn't. It may or may not be negative, but it's just like any hiccup, especially like an ongoing thing. Like we have friends who literally rent the shore houses every single year, drop $10,000 every single year. Because we're just talking about that. I'm like, they've been doing it for over 10 years. I'm like, dude, that's over $100,000. You could have literally half paid this house off.
Yeah.
In another 10 years. The thing would have been paid off for less than that. 15 years, you could have owned the thing
absolutely.
outright, right? Mm-hmm. So in 5 more years, they're still dropping that $10,000. And I know how easily I'm just saying these numbers, but still, it's just like $10,000. They're just, you know what I mean? But the money went wrong at 1 year, and it was just like, oh boy, not with this particular people that I'm speaking of, but that same concept happened with a buddy of mine from Temple, where. It was a good chunk of change. It was like $7,000, and they split it. It was like $3,500 a piece, and the person only came up with like $1,000. And he's like, "Dude, you're like $2,500 short. You're like, you're not even close." "Oh, I'll get it to you. Just front it." So then my buddy fronts it, and they get the house, and all summer long he's like nickel and diamond. So now, diming, and so now my buddy, every time he saw this dude go out and partying, he had this thing. He's like, "Oh, you have the money to go out and party? Oh, but you can't pay me, the $100 a week that we agreed on, blah, blah, blah."
Wow.
So it was just like, and it continued. It snowballed. Then the dude bought a new car. So he's getting nasty text messages and phone calls. And it just snowballed into this crazy thing. And I know.
I'm sure they don't talk now.
Yeah, no, they do talk, but they were best friends. Let's put it that way. They're not anymore.
Wow.
With the Huffington Post is like talking about the finances. And I say this about, I said this last week with Make It Happen, is like sometimes you don't necessarily know what it all entails. You don't know. And the episode prior to that, I didn't even know, like when I was talking about like in a business sense, I didn't know I was playing chess. I didn't know I was in the game of chess. Meanwhile, I was just playing a game. I didn't know what it was called, and I didn't know there was strategy. And sometimes you don't even know what you're getting. I say that to say you don't even know necessarily what you're even getting yourself into. If it's your first time and you didn't seek advice or guidance from someone who's been there, done that kind of thing, I don't know, Lindsay, did you talk to anybody before? Like, hey, he's kind of just whatever, or did you see a friend do that and it kind of worked out for them? I feel like with you guys, it was more of a natural thing, but...
yeah. I mean, my sister and her now husband, the three of us lived together at one point, and then they moved out. But I think it just kind of worked itself out because everything was already, like, in my name and, like, as far as bills and stuff. So it was just easier to, like, all right, I'll just send you half of, cable and rent and everything. Right. Rather than trying to figure out, like, who owes what, when, and...
There's no question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty clean cut. That's awesome. Yeah, and then I remember, like, even like when we went to Temple, so the first 2 years, actually for the first 2 years, Temple helps their students, freshman and sophomore, get housing within, like, on the campus. After sophomore year, I don't even know if this is still true. We're talking over 10 years ago. But if after sophomore year, it's kind of like you're on your own. There's housing around, but you got to figure it out on yourself. So we figured it out, bunch of guys, right? 4 or 5, 6 guys. We figured it out. Found a house on Fontaine Street, 1512 Fontaine Street.
Fontaine.
Which is a block off main campus. Fair enough. So we're walking, literally it was like basically being on campus. Yeah. Outside of we had like regular neighbors. It wasn't like other students. But anyway, I remember huge arguments, like dang near fist fights over the bills. I mean, people weren't coughing. And at that time, we didn't have Venmo. We didn't have Cash App. We didn't have any of these things. It was like, dude, literally, some of us were cutting checks.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to get dinged, because we're such nickel and diamond. If you went to, like, the ATM on campus, they would charge you $5 to withdraw money. Then your bank would charge you $5. And I was like, dude, I just lost $10. Do you know what a college kid could do with $10?
A lot.
Dude, it's to that level. And then that in itself created arguments. Like, dude, there's an ATM right there. Give me my money. Like, I'm not getting dinged for $10. Just gotta have you money. And literally arguments. It's nuts. But again, I didn't know I was getting into that, right? Like, I didn't have anyone to bounce an idea off of. Like, oh, when you went to, when you're dorming with someone, how'd that work out? I don't know. Didn't do it. So, okay, what do? Figure it out. So this was us figuring it out. And then you don't even know what's going on. We were so ignorant. We didn't even know if what we were giving was the right amount. So then, like, we're like, dude, I think this guy's making money off of us. Like, and it started, like, boiling down. Like, dude, this is a disaster. Then when we left, I'm like, we never even got our security deposit. This is stuff I thought of years later. This is how, like, knucklehead situation.
Somebody got the security deposit back.
Yeah.
You didn't get nothing in return.
Yeah, and I still don't even know. But, and for me, that's not something that I care to even, like, whatever. It's like, fine, like, because I believe in, what goes around comes around, karma, whatever. That's on you, dude. That's just going to come back on you. I'm fair enough. I still laugh at myself. I'm able to laugh at, like, how literally just dumb, dude. Like, a level of dumb that's profound. But it is what it is to me. It's just like, it's a learning lesson. It is what it is. But if my kids or someone were to ask me, my cousin's going into that situation, hopefully they'll seek me out and remember that I did it. And I can tell them, like, dude, just make sure you do X, Y, and Z. I'm not telling you how you live your life, but think about those things. It's on you. I want you to learn your own, hardships. I want you to go through your own thing. That's the only way we're going to grow is through pain. But if there's some things you can skip, you know what I mean? Yeah.
That's funny.
So, all right. Outside of, the furnitures and the finances, what was the hardest part you think about moving in together?
Probably like being able to go to the bathroom with the door open.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like, that's whatever number that was about being okay. Like, I will never, like, I still have not. I will never fart in front of Dan. I will never poop in front of him. Like,
yeah.
That is never going to happen.
That's a level that, like, I think even with me, like, I'm a guy, and I took that level to, like, an extreme level before, like, with Jess. I've been with Jess for 10 years. And it's like, I think it took maybe 2.5, 3 years before I actually, like...
Oh, well, Dan doesn't care.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll be sitting watching TV and he, like, kind of looks over at me. I'm like, really, dude? Like, you couldn't have gotten up.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that is tough because and it's like it's your own space. And I have a classic. The guys know I sent the text out in our family group message, but I was trying to figure something out on Instagram that I wasn't understanding. You know, like the story. I understand like the story part, but I was like, how do people get the buttons on, like there's little circles underneath the description and their profile. So I was trying to figure this out and it was driving me nuts because we just launched the Blessed Life and I wanted to make sure I was promoting myself as much as possible without being obnoxious. And basically that's what the story is. So if they don't click on it, then they won't see it and you could just still share your family pictures, your personal stuff. Excuse me, but with the story, you clicked on it, dude. That's on you kind of thing. And of course, I'm going to promote my, my business or whatever. And of course, this thing got like within 20 minutes, hundreds of views. I'm like, how? And then all of a sudden, this thing starts sending me statistics and all this. It was like just cool as anything. But I was going back and forth. So I was out back smoking a cigar. And Kel was just upstairs. I don't know if she's taking a shower or putting James to bed or whatever. But I had showered James. She gave the Kate a bath. We put him all upstairs. Everything was good. I'm like, boom, he's done. I'm going downstairs. It was still early. I mean, it was like, I don't know, 10:30ish. I'm like, I was dying for a cigar. I'm like, I'm going to go smoke a cigar, go out back. So I'm out back figuring this stuff out on Instagram. So we're going back and forth in text. She's like, Jim, you're not gonna hear from me for a while. I'm like, what? She's like, I'm jumping into the shower or whatever. So if you're asking me questions, I'm not answering. It's not because I fell asleep or anything. I'm like, okay. And then real quick, I'm like, yo, what does this do? And I sent her a thing. So unknowingly, I'm just out back, smoking a cigar. And she comes out and she's like, Jim. I'm like, what? She's like, did you figure it out? I'm like, no. She's like, ew. I'm like, what? She's like, it smells like cigars and farts out here. So I said, excuse me. You came into my personal space unannounced. That's on you. Okay. But it was funny as hell. And I laugh at myself. So I put it out there or whatever to the, the team or the Team BC text or whatever. But it's true. I was like, wait a second. You can't just like barge in on me. And she saw me. She's laughing because it's like the most innocent thing. I'm sitting there on Instagram trying to figure this thing out. 11 o'clock at night or whatever.
It's the worst smell ever.
Yeah.
A 40 cigar combo.
I never go outside. But the best part was I didn't even know I was farting. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, that's what it smells like. It might not have even been.
He crust stopped it. Was it the dust cropped himself?
Yeah, listen, I was relaxed. You know what I mean? But yeah, those are all, things that are challenging. You kind of get over and you develop and you figure ways around those things or whatever. That is funny. I forgot about, that or when that even happened in my relationship with Kel. I have no idea. She could probably tell you. All right. So what was, flipping the script on that one? What was the most rewarding part of moving in together?
I think we really just have fun hanging out together.
Mm-hmm.
When you see those couples, then you can just tell they just don't like each other.
Yeah.
We'll just, we'll go to a bar for a drink, or right now we're working on a puzzle, or watch The Office, and we're just hanging out, and it's not weird, or he has his
forced.
video games now, right? It's just chill and it's fun.
Yeah.
So I think just being able to do more things together that we find out that we like, and it's only been a little over a year, so we're still learning about stuff that we like to do, and still trying to get Dan to get his passport so we can go on any vacation.
Wait, he's
Dan has never left the country.
Never mind.
That's too funny.
I'll leave it at that. I was gonna say something, but no.
But yeah, he's a fun guy to hang out with. He's hilarious, and it's always interesting when we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have company.
Yeah, for sure. So based on off that, and I don't know if there's anything else you want to add towards moving in together, but if there was a couple, let's just say, if you could speak to the year and a half ago, Lindsay, before you guys moved in together, would there be any advice you would give yourself, or if you felt like you kind of played your cards right? If there was a couple moving in together, what advice would you give them?
It's funny because in my girlfriends group chat, we had something like this morning because I have one friend who she's like so passionate about everything that she just loves to turn everything into like a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm always reading her rants and like her texts, and I'm like, like it's not that big a deal, you know, like you just have to pick what you're going to care about.
Right.
And it's, you know, like not everything is life or death. Like,
right.
you know, stuff that you think is important 5 minutes later is not going to be that important.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I really just think it's a matter of figuring out how each other works and, you know, realizing that like it doesn't always have to be a fight if you don't do everything exactly the same. Like you're different people. You're going to do things differently.
Yeah.
You just a matter of like chilling out and being okay with that.
Right. Yeah. I know like one of the things like for me, I would say is just the ability to share. And not only just share items, share your thoughts, share truly like what you're thinking. Because sometimes people hoard not only items, but their thoughts. And then that boils up and that can eventually end up into some like, you know, mass argument to, you know, maybe even the possibility of splitting up or whatever. But I think it's just sharing and sometimes not being too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
just
say
like the right
proceed
amount.
with caution kind of thing. Like just test the waters out. Sometimes people are too comfortable, right? And that always freaks me out too. I don't like people who are like too cautious because then there's like nothing gets done. And then people who are like so careless is like, dude, you're reckless at this point. You know what I mean? You got to find that weird balance just with everything in life, right? You have to find that, you know, that balance. But yeah, and I think that that can easily be found with the most basic thing. What do we teach our kids, right? Learn how to share. You can share your toys. That's like our biggest topic right now with James is him sharing. And he's very open, but he was never exposed to that outside of school. So he just think everything is his. And he thinks everyone, you know, at one point, if it's he goes over Nova's house or Hex house, Hex daughter stuff are also just his. He can just, you know, at will just play with whatever. And I was trying to explain to him, this is truly sharing, you know, you being open with your things or what was yours, for example. I know another thing with me is like cleaning and stuff. You know, your definition of being clean or cleaning is not the same definition as someone else's definition of what looks clean, right? And so like maybe that doesn't necessarily have to be a quote discussion, but just an observation at first and an acceptance maybe on your end and maybe not an acceptance if someone's like too over the top and you can't handle it. That's going to be there forever. Like you can't change people. You can only, you know, influence them to a certain extent. A lot of it is just you, right? It's kind of like what you were saying, you know, you literally have OCD and there's certain things, but you were mature enough to understand and be able to deal with that aspect of your relationship with him and understand maybe it's just me. Maybe it's me. Maybe he's not dirty. Maybe it's just me. Maybe he is dirty. Yeah. I don't know, but it's an observation that you really do have to step back and just like, okay, let's just see how this goes. There's a lot of processes that we do in my career where it's just like, well, let's just try it for a week. Let's just try it for a month. And if we don't like it, we can go back to the old way, right? We always talk about that. Let's just change it. All right, some person's not happy with how things are going. Fair enough. Let's try it your way for a month. And if it works, keep it going. If it doesn't, we got to go back and come up with another plan. Just being open, I think, for me, being open to that concept is, I think that'll get you far. I don't know.
Yeah. Being like you're saying, being open. Now, you said that, what was it, the girl's name? The girl that you guys adopted, you and Dane? Nalji. Being that the first day, a friend of yours called in and said, hey, can she spend a weekend? Mm-hmm. And it started out from there, and you guys were kind of open for that. So that was like a testing the waters. And what made you guys decide that, like, we can do this, make this happen, and we're pretty much on the same page to do the whole adoption and take her in and whatever. Like, what was the whole thing? Like, was she there just for that weekend, or was she there for like, no, can you hold her for another 2 weeks? Can you keep her there? Like, I don't know, how did that all work out? Like,
I mean, the original premise was, you know, can she stay for the weekend, and when we go to school on Monday, we'll figure everything out. Because I used to work at the school where she's a senior. But I kind of feel like at least Dan and I knew that, you know, if we were going to take her, we were going to take her.
Yeah.
You know, like this, she's been through a lot. She's been shuffled through a bunch of different houses. And like, you know, I just think that we just kind of I mean, we had no idea what we were doing, but
Yeah.
we just tried it. And, you know, Jim, like you were saying, it worked. Like we tried it and it worked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we figured, you know, we're well enough off that we can give what we can to, you know, to help somebody out. And, you know, family and friends have been super supportive of everything. So,
Sure.
you know, we just figured we might as well continue helping her because, you know, I'm not going to pawn her off on somebody else. I'm not going to, you know, leave her on her own.
Yeah.
So we're just going to make it work.
Yeah, and I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. Kudos to you guys. I mean, and the thing about what that is like, it's almost like your and Dan's relationship. The way it naturally happened is just kind of, regardless. Okay, will this happen? Yes, it's going to happen. How is it going to pan out? Who knows? But it's like kind of like just take the next step in front of you. Just kind of keep it moving. It's like, yeah, I can plan out all this stuff all I want up and down, but those things are more of like a day-to-day kind of thing. Just take it how it is.
Yeah.
And like you said, you guys have a heart for that. You guys are open to that. You're compassionate to that idea, obviously. And that was just a place I think you guys were mentally ready anyway. It was something that, you know, was just resonated with you, and obviously it was something Danny, whether he shared it with you or not, he always had, like, and I just thought it was interesting. Cool as hell too. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know, just nothing else but like, I just want to say perfect. Like the way it happens, just perfect. Like it's not forced. I love stuff when it happens so well and it's not forced. It's like this natural way of occurring.
Yeah, nothing happened I feel like nothing happened like in the normal progression because like the first, I guess our second date, he was asking me like about all my tattoos and he's like, what's the most recent one that you had? And I showed him, I have a semicolon on my ring finger. So I was like, oh, it's for like mental health awareness. And so I'm telling him about all my stuff. And I was like, I get this is like literally the second time I've ever talked to you. And I just put all that out there. And he's like, no, it's cool. Like I'm actually doing like my mental health rotation right now in school. And I think all that stuff is awesome. And then like just so much stuff happened when we first met. Like I remember like Papo had a really bad seizure and like, you know, it was just like very stressful for him. So it was just like lots of things that were testing just us as people and like us as being able to help each other out. Yeah. So we, you know, we would joke like, you know, it was our third date technically, but it felt like it was our, you know, third year together because we've just done so much.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really think anything about how we progressed is like normal.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, and you guys are doing freaking awesome, so that's cool. All right, cool. We like to end things off with quotes, and the first one is by Helen Cam, and she states, "Civilization is the art of living together with people not entirely like oneself." And the second one is by Eric Hoffer. "There would be no society if living together depended upon understanding each other." Wow, it was like we were talking about the previous podcast about awareness. Very cool. All right, so there you have it, folks. Moving in together. In this episode, we have special guest Lindsay Jenkins, who recently moved in together with our other cousin, Danny Cuevas. The crew discusses sharing, communication, relationships, finances, possessions, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Helen Cam and Eric Hoffer. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.